call your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West. To give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, and maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Idora Park Museum to open downtown. Sheen Barron has a report published October 1st out of the Vindicator in what appears to be a plus for downtown because memories of Idora Park will be brought back to life in a museum of history from 1899 to 1984. Now, the story shows a legacy being set by Jim and Tony Amy of Canfield, they're well known for keeping the Idora Park memories alive. The Mahoning Valley Historical Society has reportedly acquired nearly all of their collection in a donation agreement between the two. Now, the entire article is filled with high hopes on what is being done to keep the Idora memories alive. Jim and Tony Amy made it into the top 8 some time back when they plan to move on, but the fact that they're fighting to keep the memories alive is what got the story in. Money is still in the process of being raised, as stated in the report. Some money has already been raised, but they're still trying to reach their goal. Now, their plan is to take over the parking garage on the IBM building's ground floor, on the IBM's building's ground floor. So that's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2, $1.5 million for the old bottom dollar. One report published September 27th by David Skolnick explains how City Council now has its eye on the rehabilitation and redevelopment of the bottom dollar building on Glenwood Park. Improvements and sewer line replacements were also mentioned in the report. The story is still developing. So story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3, Realty Tower story. The Realty Tower story then versus now. 1 minute tenants are in the comfort of their Realty Tower apartments, and now the towers have been demolished in an explosion story filled with a few lawsuits and mysteries yet to be solved. David Skolnick has an entire piece published September 27th explaining how the story could finally be reaching a resolution after the demolition of Realty Tower has been completed, and now Youngstown may finally be able to move on. The story is mainly a review of what has taken place, but serves its purpose of keeping everyone updated. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4, the Southern Park Mall is in the headlines, or should I say back in the headlines. Cohen Retail Investment Group could be purchasing the Southern Park Mall in what appears to be a still unsettling story. Now, the current owner, Washington Prime, made headlines some time back in what appeared to be an attempt to get the mall's finances back in order. Well, now the story is back in the headlines. The story evaluates Cohen Retail Investment Group in a deal that appears to have made local representatives a little shaky about the buyer. They're saying that the buyer has a history of making some odd decisions, especially when it comes to finances. This story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5, STEM money for the Valley. $650K in STEM money is headed this way in a report out of Canfield. The money comes from the Ohio Department of Education's Career Technical Education Equipment Program. Now, the report goes on to explain how Valley STEM is one of 14 schools across Ohio to receive the money. Now, in what the report calls this critical. If you check it out now, the money will be used to support the development of a skilled workforce by upgrading educational equipment to meet the demands of Ohio businesses, as stated in the report. The Vindicator staff report also mentions how the entire process unfolded to get the grant, thus getting this story into the top 8. That's why story number 5 made it. Story number 6, local transportation stories are brewing. $600 million settlement. A $600 million settlement has been finalized for the victims of East Palestine. Now, the entire story has kept the attention on the safety of the railroad industry. If you did not know, 55,000 claims have been made to receive a piece of the settlement, thus getting the settlement money, thus getting the story into the top 8, because that's a lot of people who have been affected. That's Mr. Number 6 almost made to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week for one purpose: to keep you informed. If you do not get up this early or you get tired, I do post a show on our YouTube page on the website, so you can check it out then. I do thank you all for the support. It is very hard to comb through over 200 stories a week and find top 8, so thank you for tuning in. Story number 7. The Stewart Health story is still in top headlines. AP News out of Boston has the Stewart Health story in national headlines. This is after Stewart Healthcare CEO Ralph De La Torre filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Senate, basically to protect himself from allegations that he failed to appear before the panel despite being issued a subpoena. This is all while the hospital chain is being investigated while in bankruptcy, folks. These are local jobs. There's a lot in this report, and they're saying that this CEO was living a lavish life while his hospitals were suffering. That's the claim, but it has to be proven, folks. This story is staying in top headlines. That's why story number 7 also made it to the top this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week for you. Extra, read all about it. Stories for you to keep you informed. Story number 8. Fire safety headed into the holiday months. Big topic. Ed Runyon has a report out of Youngstown published October 1st explaining how a family of 10 escaped a fire that could have killed everyone living in the house. The hero is Alicia Forster's 13-year-old daughter, who woke everyone up, alerting them all of a fire that took shape in the back of their home on West Boston Avenue. Folks, this is amazing. It's a miracle. This story echoes a tale of a chain of numerous fire tragedies that have hit the local area in a world that continues to stress the need for fire safety. Folks, some of these local fires have been fatal. We all remember the fire that happened some Christmases ago that made headlines, and the family did not make it. That's why story number 8 made to the top this week, because her daughter, 13-year-old daughter, saved the whole family. So that's why story number 8 made it in this week. Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8Inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8Inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, folks. It is a Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah, that happened on the 3rd before the airing of the show, so they're celebrating, and there's a lot going on in the Middle East. I mean, it's tragic, terrible. And it made me wonder, if God is watching us human beings and watching the children of Abraham and seeing how we just cannot get along. Could you imagine if God were to come back down to earth and see the damage and the strife, the envious, the hatred that we all show inside as human beings? Now, this is just not for the Jewish and the Arabic people that are continue to fight. I mean, this is for all people. God would come down here and just look at the damage. And you probably look at this. I gave you intellect. I gave you the blessings to build up. And look at this damage. I gave you ideas like holidays like Christmas and Rosh Hashanah and Ramadan. And I gave you times of peace. And look at what you've done to my children. Christ himself said, anyone who turns these little beings away from the glory of God will be punished. Folks, what have we become? Benjamin! What have we done? Muslim brothers, Hamas, and all of the other groups. What have we become as a people? During these holy months and holy seasons, folks, there will be a lot of beautiful, loving children not at the dinner table because of all of this nonsense of war. Folks, peace is the way. It's the way. My heart goes out to the people who are fighting for peace, the activists who have been battling for peace. Folks, I got up this morning, looked in the mirror, and I made a song. Peace is the way. Peace is the way to God's eternal glory. Woo! Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Why the relationship between church and state matters. Speaking of peace, with the abortion issue staying in top headlines and the Supreme Court being flooded with prayers for relief from groups eager to erode the division of church and state, according to a CNN headline. The main talking point is the attempt to tear down the wall separating church and state. This includes Catholic groups, insurance plans, Muslims, and even Eastern Orthodox parents, people who are You're in the fight with some involving books about gender and sexuality. These stories are aggressive, folks, but could expose how a common sense approach to keep government isolated from religion could stir the pot when it comes to teaching children about issues that have always existed but may have now gotten out of hand. Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 1. Story number 2. Border crossings are down. Another sign that it's election time is the fact that migrant crossings at the U.S. southern border are down, according to a CNN report by Priscilla Alvarez. Now, the report explains how this is the lowest since 2020. Immigration has remained a top issue in the next election, but by both candidates. Could that be why all of a sudden the crossings are down? Maybe they just somebody's trying to stay in office. Who knows? That's why story number 2 made it. Story number 3. The job market headed into the next election. Reuters has a report with a headline explaining how there is no sign of the U.S. labor market losing steam as job openings rebound. The report begins with a summary of how job openings have increased 329,000 to 8.040 million in August. Hires did fall 99,000, but layoffs decreased 105,000. Now this is showing signs that workers are needed even in the nothing new. Well, even if you check this out, even though nothing is new in the immigration fight, I mean that people have been talking about the issue for a while. People who are even off the books are finding work. If you check out the story, if you look into it, how this will affect the next election will show at the ballot box, because the job numbers could be a symptom of politicians maybe trying to keep their job. Maybe that's why they're emphasizing the story. But something is happening in the job market. But are people just on the job because it's election season? Who knows? Story number 3 made it this week. Big day. Story number 4: the Hurricane Helene story. There is something's being exposed in the Hurricane Helene story, and that is the loopholes in the insurance market. Now, even though over 100 or so people have died in the storm, what also got the story in is a piece in MoneyWise explaining how a Florida woman bought a flood insurance policy for $8,600, but her $100K claim was denied due to a major loophole. Now, the loophole had to do with the previous owners, basically saying like if they didn't fix the damage when they filed insurance, then you can't get insurance if you didn't fix it. So the report reveals how flood damage is often overlooked and dodged by providers, and shot the story in after Hurricane Helene hit because it's causing the flood. This hurricane caused some serious flood damage, with many people homeless and a lot of people with nothing left. But the reality is that the people who are still alive, when they go back, they need to be rebuild, but they don't have the money. So story number 4 is just heating up, and that's why I made it this week. Well, folks, are the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'm right back with the top 4. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Tune in to Method Ace YouTube channel to check out the top interviews that made it throughout the years and months. Visit Method8Inc.com. Check out all the community interviews if you want to check it out. Method8Inc.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, I got a call from my friend Steven, and I was telling him about the strike and workers, and how it's hard to please workers, and how it's hard to please people, and how it's hard to make people think positive, be content. And you say, Brian, why don't you go big? You can create jobs, get some grants, And I'm like, Steven, have you looked at how people behave? I am content in my retirement state. I don't want to go big. Come on, Brian. We could be big. Late night talk shows, productions. I think to myself, like, people who are content, people who have nothing, seem to be happy on their fixed income. And, these people may be considered small-minded, but they are doing happy things, like smoking cigarettes, getting high, getting tattoos, having babies. And a lot of these people seem to be living good on a fixed income. At least that's what it seems. But to wealthy people, they like, oh, man, I wish I could just sit around, and just live a good life and make songs about it. It's the first of the month. Got to grind, got to get mine in the hood and claim the same. But that's what's happening in the atmosphere right now. Is that there's a battlefield in the mind going on. Well, people who don't have much, they want to be blessed. And the people who have much, they want to be unblessed and be blessed. So I had to talk to Stephen. I say, Stephen, when it's time for me to receive more blessings, to bless other people. But first, as a process, Stephen. And if you don't strive for it, if you just let the Lord, do his work, the blessings will come in time, but you have got to be ready and have the mind so you do not become corrupted and destroy all of the Lord's blessings. Does it make sense now? That's why the people who are on strike, they don't understand the damage that they're going to do, but they have to understand the importance of their job and the importance of team and camaraderie, and the fact that if they do get another contract, they will have to understand that if they ever strike again, if there is anything left after the strike before, that they caused it. And the people in charge who did not give them their money caused it. So let's all join hands and talk about fighting for our blessings. We're fighting for our blessings to see another day. When we get our blessings, will we see the way? We're fighting for our blessings, all of us, to see the promised land. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. How safe is the chemical and transporting business? Speaking of strikes, The Washington Post has a report out of Atlanta, Georgia, explaining how a large chemical plant fire filled with chlorine gas caused authorities to shut down schools and government offices, leaving tens of thousands of people to evacuate. This is all while the East Palestine residents of Ohio have just been approved for a settlement in which over 50,000 claims were filed, thus keeping the chemical and transportation business stories and top safety headlines. This is number 5. Story number 6. Someone has to calm the storm in the Middle East. During the anniversary of an attack during a Jewish holiday, and there continues to be bloodshed, blood being shed, folks. The people of the world once again have their eye on the Middle East. When will the fighting stop? Mediators, diplomats, and peace activists have been tirelessly protesting and trying to get this war to stop. They've been negotiating and even doing everything to aid those affected. Now, innocent children and people are dying in what seems like an endless battle that is hitting main targets, folks. But when they're hitting these main targets, they're killing more people and destroying structures that may never be rebuilt. Now, this story is staying in top headlines. It remains a hot topic of concern because the carnage is spreading and the talk of war is continue to circulate. People like, how are we going to clean all this up? You done killed all these people. Where we going to find the labor? Oh boy. Story number 6 almost made the top 2 this week. Big head. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories for you. Keep you informed. I'm testing to see where the wind is blowing. I'm peeking through newspapers, checking under the bed at old stories, reading books for one purpose: to keep you informed. Story number 7, the small business factor. Harris plans to push for easier rules for loans, while Trump plans to continue to bring more businesses back to America. That's his goal, while also easing up on the tax throttle, according to some reports. Now, with the new business fire still burning, that means people are eager to still start a business, and entrepreneurs are still filing for new licenses. Each president has a challenge ahead when it comes to America, keeping the American dream alive for all races, creeds, and colors. Now, and that is how. The question is, how do you do it without throwing some people out to dry? That means that everybody can't win. Some people will be unhappy, folks. This story is still developing as people fight for that money pot, and the American dream lives on. Big headline. This is story number 7. Also made to the top this week. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. As a child, he was confused on why so many people were searching for a blessing. Then he powered up and grew into maturity and became the mediator sent by God to show the world to be enlightened with stories of top 8, understanding why people do stupid things and why people do smart things, and why being informed is so important, and why it is good to be content in your life, especially if you're on a fixed income, to reach for more to get a job. And on top of that, when you get that job, keep it. And if you get fired, find another job. And if you get rich, blow it on P. Diddy freak parties. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to this top story. Story number 8. Why strike now when you're needed the most? Yes, strike now. I am a little bit discouraged that I didn't get invited to P. Diddy's freak parties, but I do fantasize about certain things, how people tend to go overboard when tipping the glass with baby oils everywhere. We all dream of that dream, but many of us don't have the guts or the stomach to do it, but somebody did do it. Somebody did put the oil in the bathrooms and decided to freak in the backyard on a big mattresses. And now people are striking. More headlines are emerging in the massive port strike that has been in the news. How do we prove these port strikes? How do we prove of the freak parties? Folks, there's worry in this story. The worry now is what this will do to prices, in which analysts are saying things could get worse at a time when people need relief and where a time Americans should be coming together the most, folks. This is after nearly 50,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association decided to go on strike. One report says that the entire saga is choking the flow of many America's imports and exports and what could become the country's most disruptive work shortage in decades. This is according to a CNN report. The strike will stop the flow of a wide variety of goods, including bananas, European beer, wine, liquor, furniture, clothing, household goods, and European autos, vehicles, along with vital car parts needed, and baby oil that we could be using at the freak-offs. This is all to keep things in motion. These are all things needed to keep things in motion, especially when you think about that baby oil. Ooh, yes. Folks, the weight of this story is what has people afraid, thus getting it into the top 8, folks. That's why story number 8 made it to the top this week. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines in developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you get something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets and journalists and people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just Mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your stories just to keep people informed. I don't take any credit for it. I just navigate the stories. I don't get paid for it. I'm just doing a good deed with my spare time on my little retirement. I'm content, but I'm finding something to do. Positive. Well, folks, if you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. Stop at the store. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week. Look through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed, even during these sad times that we're living in. Keeping the ball rolling. Well, folks, I'm out of here. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.